right, welcome guys. This is going to be Speaking 1, and my name is Eric, and so I'll be your instructor for this class. And so in Speaking 1, we're going to be dividing it into 8 total sessions, and each session will have 4 different segments. And so that way you'll have a chance to practice some in between the segments. So if you're ready, we're going to jump right in. Today is segment 1 of lesson 1, and the topic today is personal data. All right, so we're going to get started here and talk about why do we need the personal data and what exactly do we need. So today for our personal data, what we're going to be talking about in segment 1, first of all, is the alphabet. Now I know some of you may feel like you already know the alphabet, and you probably do, but these letters are important for things like pronunciation of the vowels, correctly pronouncing them, but it's also important when you have to spell your name, if you're filling out forms or when you get to immigration in a special country, and when you need to report and do things like that. And so we're going to start off by looking at these letters. So we're going to pull this over here and talk about the names of the letters. So I'm going to mention the letters one by one, and as I pronounce it, I just want you to also respond by restating the letter so that we can make sure everybody knows the names. So again, these are the names of the letters, not necessarily the sounds they make. Okay? All right. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too painful for any of you, but I want to talk about a few of the letters that tend to be tricky for people, especially if you're from Indonesia. So this letter is the letter E, and this letter is the letter I. But in Indonesia and other countries, the way that you pronounce this letter is the same as the name of this letter, and so it gets a little bit confusing. So just make sure when you're asked for the names of the letters in English, this is the letter E and this is the letter I. We have a similar problem when we talk about these two letters, G and J, because even the name of the letter sounds similar, and the letter G can have 2 sounds. It can have a G sound or a J sound. And J is also the sound of that letter. So a lot of people have trouble. So just make sure, again, you know that the name of this letter is G and the name of this letter is J. All right, we've got 2 more that tend to be a little bit tricky. This letter is the letter Q. Here in Indonesia, you pronounce it Ki, but in English, we want to make sure we pronounce this correctly. It's the letter Q. And the last one is confusing because even in English, it has a couple of different names. So in American English, which is what we'll be using because I happen to be from America, so this last letter we call Z. If you're from England or Australia or one of the British Commonwealth countries, you pronounce this letter Z. They're both correct names, but for our class, we're going to be using the American English, so we're going to call it Z. All right, so I'm going to slide these out of the way and again remind you why those letters are important, and that's because the pronunciation of different vowels depends on the name. So now we're going to get ready to talk about these numbers. Again, numbers are something that you probably are familiar with. But it gets tricky, especially as we get down to these higher numbers with all the zeros. So we want to make sure we can say these correctly. All right, so just repeat after me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, those are the first 10 numbers, and they're pretty easy. But once we start building from there, things get a little more complicated. So the next ones, the teens, have their own pronunciation. This is 11. It's not 1 teen. This is 12, not 2 teen. This is 13, not 3 teen. 14, 15, not 5 teen. 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. All right, so as you can see, many of those don't have the same name as the number that we talked about above, and that's just a special case for the teens. However, once we get to 20, you will be using the name of the first digit and then these numbers. So for example, if I were to give you the number, so this comes from the 20 that we just talked about, and then the next number is 2. Or if I gave you the number, this is 20, and then this is 4. Okay, so they get easier after that. So this is going to be 30. And then you would have 31, 32, 33, 34, and so on. This is 40, 41, 42, 43, so on. 50, also the same. 60, 70, 80, and 90. Okay, now for the ones that get a little trickier. These are 100, 1,000, 1 million, and 1 billion with a B. So for these, they work the same way as when we talked about the 20s before. So if I gave you the number, you're going to read 100, then 30, then 7. So 137. Okay, so hopefully this isn't too difficult for you, but again, I want to remind you, why are we talking about these numbers? Well, when you're giving your personal data, you're going to be giving your address that has numbers, you're going to be giving your telephone number that has numbers, and also hopefully sometime soon you'll be traveling and needing to spend money, or even better yet, someone will be paying you money and you'll need to be able to count that correctly. So it's important to know these numbers. All right, so I want to talk about a couple of examples, and then we're going to do some practice exercises. So let me go back to our whiteboard here. Let's talk about these examples. I'm going to spell these, or point to these, and I want you to spell them for me by using the names of the letters. Okay, so this first word is the word ice, and I want you to spell it for me. Are you ready? Okay, you say it as I write the letter. I, C, E. Good. All right, now then, this is the name of a person, the name George. So you say it as I write the letters. G, not J, G, E, O, R, G, E. Good. All right, now we want to practice a little bit more. We're going to talk about these numbers. Okay, so just like before, when you read the numbers, you're going to have to look at the whole thing together, but you do it by paying attention to the parts. So this is going to be 50, 7. Good. And if we write it in words, it looks like this. 57. Okay, now then, this one is obviously a much longer number, but what we need to pay attention to is the comma right there in the middle, because that tells us that it's a thousands number. If you remember, back up here, we had 1,000 that had 3 zeros. So anytime there's only one comma, that tells you you're going to be doing something in the thousands. And all we have to do is read the number before the comma. Then where we see the comma, we're going to say 1,000. And then we're going to read the number after the comma. Okay? So what is this number? This would be 286,942. You see how we did that? So we read these three as a number, 286, and then the comma, 1,000, and then 942. Okay? All right, so now what I want to do is a few practice exercises before you're going to do some independent work on the worksheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a letter, and I want you to write it down. Okay? So the letters will show up here on the screen, and then I want you to write them on your paper. Okay? So the letter that I have is, the first one, M. Write it down. Okay, and here's what the letter looks like. M. All right, the next letter is W. W. Okay, E. E. D. D. G. G. Z. Z. I. And Q. All right, how did you do? Good, I hope you did well. All right, now what we want to do is I'm going to give you a word, and then I'm going to spell it out, and I want you to write the letters down. Okay, so the first one is the word 10. T-E-N. If you wrote it correctly, it should look like this. All right, the next word is cage. C-A-G-E. If you did it correctly, it should look like this. All right, the last word is the word rush. R-U-S-H. Again, if you did it correctly, it should look like this. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing with some numbers, and then you're going to do some practice on your own. The number that I want you to write first is the number 62. 62. If you did it correctly, it should look like this. All right, the next number is a little longer. It's the number 324. Try it. 324. If you did it correct, it should look like this. All right, the last one for this segment is 10,578. Okay, 10,578. If you did it correct, it should look like this. All right, good job everyone. That's the end of segment 1.